Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa MMA. Today here, UFC heavyweight, one of the newestly signed UFC heavyweights. He is Mr. Allen AJ Frye, getting ready, taking on Guilherme Pat, December 13th, last card of the year. AJ, my friend, what's going on, man?
Not much, brother. Just hanging out, man. Just getting ready for this fight.
Absolutely, man. You know, if we watch you fight in the Carolina area on the regional scene, man, every time you go in there, you have that killer instinct. You're going for finishes. You have a lot of pop with the hands. You put a lot of people out cold. For you, how much pride do you take in the way you fight?
Man, getting finishes is obviously awesome because it excites the fans. It catches eyes, but it's not the end game for me. My goal is always to just go win. So whether it's a finish, a decision, submission, it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely. You know, your head coach, a guy who's been in the UFC, a big name, Mr. Derek Brunson. How did you get hooked up with Derek?
Yeah, man. So I came back to Wilmington after I finished college at NC Wesleyan University, which is in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I was kind of just hanging out, working, and I always told people I wanted to go back to doing some sort of combat sports. I used to box a little bit when I was younger, and just a bunch of people recommended I go try out Brunson's. And I actually knew this guy from playing basketball that I went to high school with. And he just brought me into Brunson's one day. He was like, dude, I think you should try it out. So I did a free class. And then I literally met Derek on my first day. And he was like, yeah, man, like, you're a big body. You're, in shape. You're kind of a nice athletic heavyweight. You should try to do it. So literally the first day I just signed up once I went. And it was up from there.
Absolutely. You know, so many people are watching mixed martial arts in this day and age. I mean, you have tons of regional shows. You have UFC almost every weekend, bare knuckles, PFL, karate combats, all these things, right? Very few people understand what it's like to be a professional fighter. When you're fighting on the regional scene, you're not making Conor McGregor money. A lot of guys have 9 to 5 jobs. You miss birthdays, weddings, Thanksgivings, dinners. You stay up late. You wake up early. You do all of this just for the opportunity to be in the position you're at right now. You've done this for a while, sacrificed everything. You're where you want to be. But what's made you stick through this and chase this for so long?
I really think the reason I've stuck through and chased it for so long is just how MMA has changed my life. Like, it kind of just gave me like a structure, like I have to be disciplined every day. I'm focused. It's made me tougher mentally. Not that I was ever like mentally weak, but if there was any like flaws, MMA has kind of just sharpened everything. Just made me more of like a dedicated and disciplined person.
Do you feel that fighting is more mental than it is physical?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, obviously the physicality is a big part of it, especially your cardio. You have to be in good shape to be able to fight. But a lot of that goes back to the mental aspect of it. If you can be mentally strong and push yourself in those tough workouts, then the cardio won't be an issue. It won't be a hard thing.
Absolutely. You know, you talked about how it provides you structure and guidance. I've had so many people on this show tell me when they first started MMA, they were going down a bad path. They were getting in trouble, turning the father, the husband, person they are today. You know, for you, what does it mean to call yourself a martial artist?
Man, it means the world. I think for me personally, I coach a AAU basketball team of younger kids, and I also run a basketball camp in the summer. So it's really cool to see how the kids react to me doing this and, sticking with my dreams and chasing something that is scary to a lot of people. And I would say that's one of the biggest motivators to me is like just showing these kids that what you can do if you just like put all the bullshit aside, and just chase your dreams and just give it your all.
Absolutely, man. You know, from the Carolina area, when you look at the U.S. map, you see different hotbeds of mixed martial arts. Obviously, Florida's got a huge scene, California, Colorado's. The southeastern area, the Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee area, starting to pick up a lot of noise. We're seeing guys now do big things in the UFC, the Stephen Thompsons of the world, the Weston Wilsons, the Malcolm Wellmakers, Brundages, Finneys. All these people are now starting to emerge. Is it pretty cool now it's your turn to help represent this area in the UFC?
Yeah, it definitely means a lot. I was actually thinking about that in the gym today. Like, not only repping North Carolina, repping Wilmington, and also, most importantly, repping Brunson's MMA. I want to go put a good name for us,
Absolutely. You know, just in general in this area, man, we're starting to see so many different regional promotions. Obviously, South Carolina has some. Georgia's got XFC. You know, you got some big ones over in North Carolina as well. Well, talk about this area, man. Do you think this area really is it starting to embrace MMA? Is it really starting to build here?
Yeah, I definitely think it's starting to build. I mean, I know there's regional promotions putting on a show almost like every month or two. Like I always hear and see on like Facebook group chats, Instagram group chats, whatever, just like looking for a fight. I see fights, all throughout North Carolina, South Carolina. So the South region is definitely picking it up.
Absolutely, man. So where were you when you got this phone call that you were being signed to the UFC?
Yeah, I was telling your buddy yesterday that I was actually running like an hour late for my day job. So I woke up to a text from Derek, my coach, and he sent me a picture of my opponent's Tapology and was like, "Hey, you're fighting this guy UFC December 13th." And I was like, kind of still blurry headed because, like I said, I just woke up late for work. And I read that text and I was like, the Contender Series isn't going on December 13th. And I was like, what are they, just lengthening the season or something? So I gave Derek a call and I was like, I'm fighting him in the UFC. He was like, yeah, man, you're fighting him in the UFC. So I was just in shock, really. It's not likely to skip the Contender Series or the Ultimate Fighter, but I definitely feel ready for it. So.
Obviously we're just coming off of the Contender Series. Watching it this year, were you expecting maybe a call on that? Was that something you were thinking, hey, maybe any week now I might get the opportunity?
Yeah, I was definitely staying ready. I had a fight September 6th against Justin Frazier, who fought on the Ultimate Fighter and did like 1 or 2 fights in the UFC. So it was kind of in the back of my mind with beating him, it would get me a chance to fight for the Contender Series. But I did think it would have to either happen short notice or I would have to try to get on next year's season.
Absolutely. Speaking of it, your last time out, Justin Frazier picked up a beautiful TKO first round of that fight. Obviously he's a guy fought in Bellator. He's fought in the UFC, man. We're looking back at it. We're pretty happy with the performance.
Yeah, definitely happy with the performance. He took me down once or twice, but I was able to, just stay composed, fight through it, get right back up, and then I was able to finish him on the feet.
Absolutely. You get to do this one over in the Apex, such a unique environment. You missed out on the Contender Series, but you get to go this one. Not a lot of fans in there. This time you'll have walkout music. They'll call your name. Obviously, I'm sure you've watched so many fight cards on TV from the Apex. It's pretty cool. Just even imagine yourself going to be in that environment.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember like the first amount of fights I started watching were all at the Apex, and you could just hear the hits. I'm super excited to be able to fight there.
Absolutely. One thing is a little different. The Apex, as opposed to arena show, you have that cage. It's a little smaller. But, battling it on the regional scene, you have a smaller cage to begin with. Do you think that's going to make this a little easier of an adaptation?
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty easy to adapt to. If anything, the cage is going to be a little bit bigger than some of the cages I fought in. I've fought in some small cages, which as a longer fighter isn't ideal. So I think stepping into that cage would definitely feel kind of refreshing.
Absolutely. So you're taking on Guilherme Pat here, a guy who's supposed to be on the Contender Series. That didn't work out. Now he's fighting you in his debut as well. What do you think of him as an opponent?
I think he's a solid opponent. Me and him both are the new breed of heavyweights. We're both, taller, kind of lankier, and also like really athletic and in good shape. So I think it's going to be a really good fight. He's got some nice, crisp movement and striking. So I think it'll be a really good, fun fight.
I think you really said it best there. Both of you guys are very well-rounded fighters. Could you see this a couple ways, man? Are you convinced someone's going to sleep? Could you see it being a dog fight? What do you think?
Yeah, man. I don't really go into fights with too much of a prediction just because it is the fight game and anything is possible, especially at heavyweight. Anybody could get lights out at any given time in the fight. But I do think me and him are both well-rounded enough, in good enough shape, and technically sound enough to go put on like a 2 or 3 round fight. And then I think I'll get the finish.
Absolutely, man. For so long on the regional scene, you're busting your butt in the gym, doing the shows, just trying to make it to this point. Now that you made it, do you feel like the real journey has now begun?
Yeah, 100%. I said this in another interview. I respect the hell out of all my opponents, but all of my previous matches, amateur and pro, don't really mean that much to me anymore. This is the end goal, the UFC, and it's a whole new beginning now. I'm 0-0, and I'm ready to start this career.
For you, man, what do you want to accomplish in this sport?
Man, obviously, I think everybody who goes to the UFC wants to be a champion, but I do it. I'm a big step-by-step guy, so I want to go beat Guilherme Pat before I start thinking of anything else. But end goal is definitely to be a UFC heavyweight champion.
Absolutely, man. You're at a position now where at the gym, man, you're running the big figures. People are looking at you. Hey, he's the UFC guy. You're getting messages on social media. People, younger fighters. Hey, man, I want to be where you're at. What's it like to be able to give people advice and, kind of play that role now?
Dude, it's awesome, man. Like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the basketball stuff, it's just really good to be able to give back. And also, especially having Derek as my coach and seeing how much he's given back, it motivates me even more to kind of like put myself in that similar situation and spot. Get a couple wins, have a really good UFC career, and be able to set up the youth.
Absolutely. When you're watching some of the guys that you train with fight, or even maybe some of the guys you coach in basketball, do you get more nervous watching that when you actually go out there and compete yourself?
100%. I get nervous watching anybody I love and care about do anything that they love and care about more than myself. I'm whenever I'm fighting, I know how much work I've put in. I know the time and effort that I've done, so it's harder for me to feel nervous. But when I'm watching them, I'm just obviously I want them to do well, and I'm not in there controlling how they do. So it's harder for me to feel less nervous.
Absolutely. I mentioned that so many people are watching this sport in this day and age. And I think for the most part, most people understand what a fighter does, right? They're like a big on the gym. They try to get fights, to get bigger fights, win belts, and all this stuff. Very few people to me understand the fight outside the fight. And to me, that's a fight not to clock in at 9 o'clock in the morning, clock out at 5. That's a fight to secure financial freedom. That's that fight to live life on your terms and not follow societal norms. For you, has this been a big part of the journey?
Yeah, man. I honestly just recently got my manager at one of my jobs to give me just one shift a week. I used to work 4 or 5 shifts at that job and then 3 shifts at another job. So I was working like 6 or 7 days a week. Now that's freed up a little bit. I've made the sacrifice since I've signed to the UFC. I'm trying to devote all my time to just training. So I will take a little financial setback for a little bit until I fight in December. But just like in anything in life, man, if you want the top outcome, you have to make some sacrifices. So I'm willing to make it.
In addition to fighting, what else do you do? What are some of these other occupations you have going on?
Yeah, man, I'm a bartender and I'm a bouncer. Obviously not my end career goals, but they are very like helpful for me right now with my fighting career just because of my schedule. It allows me a lot of flexibility to be able to train 2 to 3 times a day and still go work and make some money. So.
Nice, man. Turn a little bit of head sometimes at the bar. Maybe people get a little rowdy. You say, hey, man, I'm signing the UFC. Does that stuff calm down pretty quickly?
Yeah, I usually don't have to say anything. I have a bunch of friends out there that know me. They're always like, hey, man, don't mess with him. So yeah, nobody gives us problems.
Absolutely, man. Before we wrap up here, one thing I want to do is we have some massive fights coming up in the UFC. I want to get your predictions on who's going to win some of these big fights. So this weekend, we got a great one. Really good middleweight 185 contest. Renier de Ritter fighting Brendan Allen. Who do you think wins it?
I think RDR will get it done. I think he's real hot right now. Brendan Allen's obviously a very solid fighter. I think he's extremely well-rounded. But I think that RDR is just a little bit too long and a little bit too precise with his knees and his straight punches. I think he'll end up getting like a second or third round finish.
Absolutely. Later in October here, you got your division title on the line. Tom Aspinall defending it against Cyril Gahn. Who wins that one?
That's definitely an interesting one. I think after Cyril lost to John Jones, he's going to be a much better wrestler, at least at defending takedowns, which might make it tough for Tom at first. And none of us have seen Tom go outside 1 or 2 minutes. But I still do think that Tom will get the job done. I think he's just a little bit too well-rounded and explosive for him.
Absolutely. We got a big show in November in New York, one of the best cards of the year. We got a female super fight as the co-main event. Valentina Shevchenko taking on Weili Zhang. Who wins that?
Those are 2 legends, dude. I don't even know if I could pick on this one. I'd have to go Valentina. Just out of her experience and the level that she's on, I think she will get it done. But that's definitely one of those where it's like 50-50. Both of them are legends in the sport, and obviously I have a shit ton of respect for both of them.
Absolutely. Main event on that one that night, it's 170 title on the line. Jack Dalla Maddalena putting it up. Islam Makhachev coming up, trying to get his second belt. Who wins that?
Islam. And JDM's really good, but I don't see a single person beating Islam at any weight class.
Absolutely, man. We just talked about some of the biggest names in the sport right now. When you're watching the big fights, do you get motivated? Do you get inspiration off these guys?
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I just get motivation being in my gym every day, obviously under Derek. He has this like poster on the wall, or he has multiple posters on the wall of like some of his main events or, co-main events and things like that. And I just look up there and it's just motivation, man. Like I got my foot in the door. Now it's time to try to get some posters of mine up there.
When you're watching the heavyweight division now, man, are you looking at these guys like, this guy here, realistically, if I get a win out there, I could be fighting him next?
Yeah, honestly, I've been doing that since I started MMA. Like once I turned pro and I was on the regional scene and I was checking on Tapology and seeing like the rankings and stuff, I would always check people above me, like 5, 10, 15 spots above me, and just realizing that they could be potential opponents. Even more so now in the UFC because it's obviously more likely that I'll fight these guys. It's a smaller pool.
Absolutely, man. You know, in this day and age, man, MMA's gone so global, but it's also gone so viral on the internet. Social media is such a big game now, a big thing in the game now. You know, fights are being made on social media. People are calling each other out on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook every single day. For you, how do you think social media has affected combat sports?
I think there's good and bad. I think the good is obviously social media is one of the biggest outlets now. So the more eyes, the better. So that's one thing that it helps with. The bad can be like for some younger guys, they might be putting too much of a focus on that side of it. And yes, it is very important. But at the end of the day, to be a better fighter, you have to be training to fight, not focusing too much on like how I look in these videos or how many views I'm getting on stuff like this. So I wouldn't put too much focus in on the social media side of it.
You know, another thing we're really seeing this day, obviously, so much more fans. We have such a huge fan base in MMA now, and I think we all need fans. There's not a bad fan, but now you have this term called the casual fan. So if you go to B-dubs, go to fights, you might hear twist from in the you know what, you read some stuff, you hear some stuff. What do you make of all this nonsense?
Man, I think any fans are good. You know, I used to be a casual fan myself like 10 years ago. I used to think the wrestling side of MMA was super boring. I'd be one of those guys like, oh, why don't they just box? You know, now I'm like, all right, if you want to see boxing, just go watch boxing. But I think any fans for the sport are good. And some people call like new fans casuals. They're not really casuals. They're just new and they're just trying to learn it on their own. So I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Try to give them some time.
Absolutely, man. All right, brother. Last question for you, AJ. In a perfect world, what is the outcome December 13th when you make your debut in the UFC against Guilherme Pat?
The perfect outcome is just a win. You know, like I said, whether it's the first, second, or third round, decision, finish, whatever. I just want to be victorious.
Absolutely, brother. I have one more, man. I've already getting ready to make your debut and everything. See you doing tons and tons of interviews, man. You're soaking it all up. How much fun are you having right now?
Oh, dude, I'm having a blast. Like I said, I love doing these interviews. Like we both said earlier, it doesn't matter if they're getting 1 million views or 2 views. It's cool to meet new people, talk about the sport, talk about myself, and also learn about you guys. So I've been having a blast.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for us today. AJ, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really excited to watch you fight in the UFC, man. Well deserved. And I wish you nothing but the best, man.
Yes, sir, Carlo. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That's it for us today. I'm Carl Peruzzi. He's Mr. AJ Frye. You can watch him making his UFC debut December 13th. Apex taking on Guilherme Pat. Take care, fight fans.
Yes, sir.